Don't tell James. Don't
I
tell
won't
James.
tell him. I won't tell him. He's not gonna watch this. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we're pretty safe to assume he's not going to watch this.
Nah, he's probably not gonna watch this.
How did it feel to know that James Hill listened to your podcast?
Absolutely so weird. I could not believe it. I would not have made that many jokes about him if I knew he was gonna look at it. But if he watches this, hi James. We're now best friends,
Oh, he
and
would definitely
you
watch
also
it.
have to come on my podcast. Welcome to Viggy Talks, a conversation show about the creative things that inspire us each and every day. My guest today literally does not need an introduction, but I'll try to give him one anyway. You've seen him all across the ukulele world. He's one of the most inspiring ukulele players to date. He's inspired my journey, and I'm sure he's inspired yours in some way. Please give it up for the incomparable Mr. James Hill. Hi, James.
Wow. Thanks for the great intro.
Oh, thank you. Very nice shirt. We did this all.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we were so coordinated.
Yeah, I really wore it on purpose today. But thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Very full circle moment for me, so I'm very much happy that you're here. This is really cool.
I love it.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a timeline on my end with my journey that you fall into at certain points, which is kind of fascinating. When I started almost 10 years ago now, I was in high school, and I was in the band room with my band teacher who taught me how to play the ukulele as well. And he showed me your video of Billie Jean, and that absolutely blew my mind to what the instrument could be. And from then on, I consider that my life-changing moment. Not to put too much pressure on you.
Wow.
But that video changed my life a little bit. And it made me want to do this in some sort of way. So when it came time that I started putting things online and kind of putting my skills and my personality out there, I really looked to your style of playing as an influence for me going forward. And some of you might not know this, but James is actually an OG Jiggy fan, because when I first started posting on TikTok, you followed me back on the UkeHeads account, I think at like 100 followers. So you were like way there in the beginning.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the jury's out if that's actually you on the UkeHeads page, but I like to believe it is you.
Oh no, it's me some of the time, and that was probably me. So okay. I'll take credit for that.
You need to, for me personally. You need to.
That's right. There's no option there. Yeah. But that's so cool. I love the fact that our sort of lives and our musical lives are entwined in that way. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you had a good band teacher.
Oh yes, I did. He'll freak out a little bit seeing this. So this is for Adam Weber. Here you go.
Right on. Way to go, Adam.
Yeah. So, just wanted to start with that. So I just really think you're an incredibly influential player, and I want to ask you, starting out, what inspires you to think so out of the box with the ukulele? Where do you kind of get inspiration for some of these more unorthodox approaches? So the chopsticks, and also the combining all the different elements into one solo type of play. Where do you get that from? Does that come from anywhere specific, or?
Well, that's a good question. As with most questions, there's like a short answer and a long answer. There's the simple answer, which is, I guess I've always been fascinated by turning the limitations of the ukulele into things that are sort of proud, hallmarks rather than limitations. So I'm very interested in limits, because if you don't have limits, then you don't really know where you are. And when limits are that electric fence that keeps the cows in, like, they need that, otherwise they might just end up getting lost. And right. We're the same way. We all need that fence. So on one hand, you need that fence to know where you are in the world, and where you are in space, and where you are in music. And on the other hand, you want to make it seem like it's not there to the audience. Mm-hmm. And that's really the trick, right? So if you can know so well that where that fence is at, that you can walk right up to it and stop just before you hit it. The audience doesn't really perceive it, and they sort of think that you could just keep walking. Right. So there's that illusion of limitlessness, actually comes from a very clear understanding of where the limits are. So I've always been really interested in, okay, where are these limits? Let's be honest. I don't like to say to, people, well, you can do anything you want to do, and this instrument can do anything possible. Right. It's like, no, this is a 4-stringed thing, that has some severe limits. And it's only by leaning into those that you're able to at least give the impression that you're sort of transcending them. I've also been really inspired by beatboxers. I'm a terrible beatboxer, but my son, who's 7 years old right now, he just came out beatboxing. Like, he's been beatboxing his whole life. He's never seen any like pro beatboxers, but he's always just in the background, in the back seat of the car, always beatboxing away and loving drums now. And I sort of beatbox along with him, and so that is really fun. The idea that you have one mouth, but you could potentially have like 3 or 4 different layers of music going on at the same time. That's very similar to the ukulele. So, those are some of the things that inspire me and just, make me want to, keep pushing. I also get bored very easily, so.
Right. That would be the short answer of that, right? Like, I get bored, and then the long one.
That's right. We did it in reverse. We did the long answer first. The short answer is I'm easily bored.
Right. No, that's amazing. You have such a cool, what I like to refer to as almost like a Foley artist approach to playing the ukulele in terms of coming up with the different sounds. Because, do you know what a Foley artist is with like film and TV?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So like how you use these different elements, or you'll hear a sound that you want to replicate now on the uke in some kind of different way, perhaps hitting it somewhere else or using a different kind of technique here and there, is like really, really interesting. And it takes like a certain kind of like headspace to reinterpret sounds to then create them in a new way. So
interesting. I've never heard it described that way. That's really interesting, because I am really fascinated by the difference between a song and just a sound. So like typically people are like, oh, I go on Spotify and I want to listen to songs. Songs have been around for a very long time. Song form has been around for a long time. But for, hundreds, probably thousands of years, it was just one of many forms that music could take. Right. The idea that you have a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus and a bridge and a chorus, chorus, chorus. That's a relatively modern way of packaging sounds. And now we call it a song, and it's sort of taken over as the sort of predominant container that we know how to interpret, we know where to find them, we know how to respond, we know that they're about 3 minutes, and then we have to clap. There's a lot of very comfortable sort of language around that, but it's still one very small piece of the musical spectrum. On the other hand, you might have things that are much longer and much more diverse in their sort of musical world that they create. Something like a symphony, which has many sections, and you get lost in it, and you can it can go on for 45 minutes or an hour, and it's that's not a song. And on the other hand, they go the other way, and then you might get back to just a single sound. Maybe it's like a meditative sound, maybe it's a singing bowl, or maybe it's a didgeridoo or something. It's really just it's a sound, and you sit with that sound. I'm just really fascinated by sounds. As much as I like songs, I do like songs, but songs are a small part of what fascinates me, and sound is really the thing that captivates me the most, even possibly more than music itself.
Yeah, totally. That's cool. It's almost like you're breaking down, right, the idea of a song into like its primitive elements of just a collection of sounds, then becomes a song, then goes from there. So it's cool that you have that like retroactive approach to it, where you have that, because you almost need to start with the appreciation for a sound, right, before you can go off of that. So that's really cool. That's really interesting.
Well, that's the only way I know how, so I'm glad you think it's interesting.
Right. No, that's so cool. Speaking of sounds, the sounds that you're able to make all even just individually, and then when you put them together on your uke in terms of your percussive solo arrangements are just like out of this world. And as a longtime fan, I know how you were doing it, but there's no way on this earth that I can do it. And I've tried. So I just think that's so wicked cool. And
I'm sure you could do it, by the way. Just saying. I'm sure you could do it.
It will take maybe, but it's I mean that left-hand technique, so I'm going to ask you what you're doing and you can either plead the faith or you can tell me if I have it.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I think you're doing that like Jimi Hendrix string muty thing with your fingers, right? Where you like individually can like mute the strings so that you could strum and it's like you only play one note at a time? Okay.
That's basically right, yeah. And I think I would also call that like a Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of approach.
Right, okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I mean, a lot of people use that now. Back in the day before I knew what it was called and when I thought I was sort of innovating this for myself, you think you're being innovative until you realize that people have been doing this for a long, long time.
Right.
I was calling it, in my own little notes, I was calling it the monostrum. So the monostrum is just like, you're hitting all the strings, but you're only hearing one note. And that was a big game changer for me because I do think that the ukulele is like a strumming machine. Like that's really what it's good at. Or at least that was my feeling at the time. And so I wanted to be able to strum and use all the strums, but instead of hearing all the strings, I wanted to just be able to hear one. And people say, are you plucking or are you strumming? And the answer is, well, yes.
Like, yes, yeah.
Yeah. And then just a little bit more practice. That really opened up a whole, interesting avenue for writing and exploring. And I think without that little monostrum technique, a lot of this stuff is just impossible.
Yeah.
But with that, it is kind of the key that unlocks a lot of those more advanced techniques.
Cool. I think that's my Achilles heel right now, but I shall.
Oh yeah.
I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Well, and it's a very unscientific thing because like when you're pushing down, let's say like a third fret on the third string with your first finger, you're using like the underside of your finger to mute the other two strings.
Right.
And so it's invisible from the audience. They don't really see you doing anything because it's all happening sort of under the hood, So I'm hitting that note, but the underside of that very same finger is making it so the first and second strings don't get sounded.
Right.
So people are looking at it going, well, where's the mute? And you're like, well, it's the same finger I'm playing the note with, and that's the sort of the deception that's going on.
Yeah, the Penn and Tellerification of ukulele.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
you show them exactly how you're doing it. The Penn and Teller thing. You show them exactly it. You do the box person cutting in half, but the box is totally transparent,
right? So
they can see exactly what's going on, and somehow it's even more amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's so cool. It's just so cool. Along with that technique, you also do, of course, your kicks and your snares, which I love in my ukulele playing and in my covers. I love doing my kicks and snares. But your snare drum is so unique in the fact that you get both the snare sound and a strum out of it at the same time. So, again, I'm holding you hostage to ask you how to do things. But you're like flicking over here, right? And then it's kind of like, is that it, really? You just kind of...
Well, that's it.
I feel like you get a
That's right.
kind of snare sound than me, though. Is that a me problem, or is it just...
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's definitely what I'm doing. There's no mystery to that. Like you can even see here the scuffing on the uke if I hold it up to the camera. But like if I do it in slow motion, it's really two things. Like on a drum, a flam, right? Like you're hitting twice, but very close together. And so if in slow motion, you're actually snapping onto the face there on the shoulder, but then you carry through.
Okay.
So you end up getting this snap, at the same time as a strum or and here's the thing. I can't exactly see your hand right now, but this is the part that people miss. because again, it's hidden from view. And I don't mind giving all of these things away because I really hope that other people like run with them, and do what they want. What's missing in a lot of people's strum when they try to do this percussive stuff, they're missing the flick aspect. And they're just strumming. They're just trying to strum the bridge, and they're just trying to strum up here. I'm like, you'll never get a real snap to it. And when you're in the back seat and with your annoying sibling, and you like flick them on the shoulder or something, like flick, flick, flick.
Yeah.
It's that very same flicking motion. Like, I'm hardly strumming at all. And I'm getting a ton of sound from that flick. You load up the finger with all that springy energy and then just release it. And you get this whack, whack. It's painful for a little while. Right. And then once your finger goes numb, you're fine.
Yes, no?
See, I think you're still even coming from too far above. Okay. Like, I'm just literally hovering there. Like, I'm not even really moving the arm at all. Okay. I'm just like starting there. Otherwise, I would miss and I would hit my finger on the side of the frets, and I would, Right. And it's the same thing when I do the snare drum, or when I do the kick drum. I'm using actually the middle finger so that each one gets a bit of a break. So I use two fingers so that you don't wear either one of them out too quickly. Right. Like, I'm not trying to strum. I'm not coming from above and strumming. I'm really just positioning myself over that sort of magic spot right in front of the bridge, and I'm just flicking. So it's hardly a strum at all. It's mostly coming from that release of the finger. Right. Yeah, that's it. And that's the part when I see people doing it on YouTube or whatever, I'm like, boy, that's gonna hurt. Yeah. Because they're really coming from above and trying to get all this momentum with the hand. I'm like, you just need to stay in that spot and release with that flicking motion so that you get that. That's where that the real snap comes from that. Right.
The power is here instead of in the arm. Right?
Exactly. Okay. The power is in the fingers, not in the arm.
Okay, hold on. I gotta switch fingers. Wait.
Exactly. Yes. You got it. So rather than strumming, you're actually just sort of moving from one place to another.
Any idea the years I spent, and then, oh my god!
Well, you could have asked me earlier.
I mean, you're right, I guess. Oh my god! Wait, I've leveled up. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there you go. That's all there is to it. And anybody can level up. I finally put a course together. I did Ukulele X. So that came out a couple years ago, and it's like, I did go through a phase where I was like, maybe I should keep all of these secrets, Right. Maybe if I tell everybody, then I won't have anybody following me anymore because everybody will know all my secrets. And then I was like, who am I kidding? Yeah. Right. No, the very best thing to do would be to tell as many people as possible, and try to get some of these techniques out there, see what other people do with them, see what a new generation will do with them. Yeah. And that's why I did Ukulele X, which is, now got, a couple thousand people going through the course. So
amazing. And that's awesome. There's always I have a slight film school background, and one of the things we said a lot was when it came to movie tropes and script ideas and stuff, is that no one will do it the way that you can do it. So even with all of your skills, no matter how much you put it out there, there's only one James Hill, and it's you, man.
Yeah, right. Phew. I'm glad that last part came through.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's in fact, one time I played a concert in Ottawa. Anne and I were playing together, but it was really focused on the ukulele. And this folk DJ from Ottawa named Chopper McKinnon, who was a big early supporter of me and with a great name,
awesome
Chopper
name.
McKinnon. He was a huge supporter and had us open for a really well-known folk musician, Willie P. Bennett, who we loved. And a lot of people at that time had sort of glommed onto this the Jimi Hendrix of the ukulele, which I never felt comfortable with because like there's no Jimi Hendrix of anything. There's only the Jimi Hendrix of the guitar, and that's Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
But you know what people are trying to say. You know, I get what you're trying to say. You're saying, okay, you're trying to stretch the boundaries. You're doing things a little differently, and the closest sort of cultural touch point we have for that is, oh, he's the Jimi Hendrix of the whatever.
Right.
You know, like Jamie Oliver is like the Jimi Hendrix of the kitchen. They're like, okay, I know what you're trying to say. It's kind of hokey, but I get it. So we're waiting backstage to go on for this show. And I'm like, well, here it comes. And he's going to use the old Jimi Hendrix line. And just as he's about to introduce us, his last line of the introduction was, and now please welcome to the stage, the James Hill of the ukulele. And I was like, wow, that's the greatest intro ever.
Yeah.
You know? Whether he did that totally on purpose, he was fairly old at the time, or whether it was just sort of a Freudian slip, I don't know. And it doesn't matter to me. I always remember that as one of my best intros ever. The James Hill of the ukulele.
That's
I thought,
amazing.
That's perfect. That's all I want to be.
It's all I can be. Yeah. That's all you can be.
That's right.
Oh, I wanted to ask you about your collaborations, just in general. I know you have your awesome UkeHeads project where you collaborate with other musicians all around the world, and you also collaborate with your wife Anne often in your project. I have notes. I wrote it down. Champagne Weather.
Oh yes.
Which I listened to the few songs that you have on your website. Those are so cool. Like,
thanks.
Those are really, really sick. I really like Mistakes. Because I love a good weird time signature. If I counted right, that's in 7/4, correct? Maybe?
I think it's 7, yes.
Yeah. What are some of the differences in collaborating with musicians around the world versus collaborating with someone who you know so close to home, like your wife, when it comes to musical collaborations? Are the processes a little bit similar, or are they different based on how well you can kind of connect with who you're collaborating with?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I would say, first of all, collaboration has been something that's been much more a part of my life since sort of mid-COVID, when I was like we were all starving for the feeling of being together, and we were also simultaneously learning a lot of skills like Zoom, for example, and people were figuring out how to upload files, and they were starting to get comfortable with being on Slack and things like that. So, you know, COVID kind of was the disease and the cure in a way. It gave us the time and space to learn new skills to bring us closer together. It was also the reason why we had to learn those skills. So, you know, a blessing and a curse for some of us. And that gave rise to the UkeHeads project, which, by the way, is just wrapping up. We're wrapping up the first full album. I just heard the masters the other day. We had a big listening party. We heard the whole album all the way through. It's amazing. I cannot believe how good it sounds with like 300 people singing and playing on these songs. It's so cool. Especially given that we really didn't know if it was going to work at all. And then to hear it not just work, but just really jump off the page in a way that I'm just so thrilled about. So I'm really on a high from that at the moment, which is cool. So that kind of collaboration has been really rewarding. But it's had to be a lot more organized. I think that's the difference. Like when you just wake up and you roll out of bed and you're talking about songs, you know, over breakfast, and it's like on the way to pick up your son from school, you have a conversation about like the bridge of that song, and do you want to do it this way, or do you want to? It's so much more integrated into your life as just a part of what you do on an everyday basis that you almost don't even notice it. It's sort of just in the water, you know. But when you're trying to collaborate, sort of intentionally go out and be a collaborator, the level of organization, which is not completely my forte, as you can tell by the mess behind me, that was a real challenge for me. Like, you have to have the parts written, people have to know what they're doing, when to show up, they have to have practice aids, guide tracks, you have to coach them through how to get those files off their phone and onto the, you know, the workspace. And, you know, it was a lot more sort of educational, and there was a lot more administration than I would have, you know, imagined. Right. Not that I minded it; it's all part of the process. But when you're collaborating with somebody, you know, across the breakfast table, it's very natural and sort of effortless. And the irony is that sometimes, because it's so effortless, you just take it for granted and things don't happen.
Right.
Whereas the thing that you have to work at and have to be organized and have to have deadlines and have to have a calendar, even though you're kind of some people might say you're kind of forcing it, well, at least it happens.
Right.
So there is that kind of inverse relationship in a way. And so with Anne and I, we have to just stay on it and make sure that we allow the thing that is the most natural thing in the world, we actually allow that to see the light of day.
Right. That's really cool. It's always really nice to have that kind of, when you're able to kind of connect with somebody who you know and love so well on that, like, more creative side of it, too, is always so cool to see what can come out of that in terms of music and, like, a creative space. So, that's really
I also feel like, another thing we take for granted, but also try to remind each other of on a regular basis, is how lucky we are to have a sort of a built-in and fairly obvious place to collaborate. For us, it's music all the time, and our son is involved in music, and he played his first gig with us not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago. He was playing drums. We just played at a coffee house just down the road, but the point was he got up there and played with us, and it's just a family business. It's what we do. It's something that is so obvious that it's so obvious it hurts. It's like growing up in a carnival family. You just you do the game, and you're there, and no questions asked. And I think it would be harder if you had very separate career paths and very separate lives, and you had to really work at finding that hobby that overlapped. Like, let's go camping. Do you like camping? I don't really like camping. Okay, let's go to an escape room because I like escape. Well, I don't really like escape rooms. And it's like, you just have to try and try and try until you find that thing. It's like, we both like going for pizza. Great. Okay, that's going to be our thing.
Right.
I think if you don't work at that, your relationship, obviously, it can suffer. Whereas I feel just so incredibly fortunate that we have this such a powerful sort of glue in our family that always pulls us back together if we start to fly off in our own directions. Music is always the thing that's brought us back closer than ever.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. My family, I was raised very musical. My dad's a musician. All my siblings are also musicians too. So we've kind of had that backbone, that same kind of thing, that glue that keeps us together, which is cool.
That's great.
But what's interesting also is sometimes how the arts can kind of merge. My boyfriend is a writer, and he's in his poetry and like Irish literature era right now. So I'm getting poems on anniversaries, which is the most
that's so sweet
thing I could ask for. But kind of seeing how we both inspire each other in different creative ways is interesting. Where if we both kind of experience something or have a shared memory, for me it might come out in like a musical sense, whereas for him, if he goes and writes prose or something about it, it's cool to see how the creative paths can meet and go off in different ways, but still share that same love for the medium of just.
Well, that's right. Absolutely right. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be you don't have to be aligned on the same rails, artistically. Just the fact that, he is a creative spirit, it's always kind of a relief when you meet another artist, because right away they understand you, it doesn't matter what art they're trying to make. And I always kind of cynically, but also I think just kind of realistically, this is how I feel. I always say that, the thing that binds artists together so strongly is that, you look into each other's eyes and you realize, oh, you're also trying to create something beautiful and failing.
Right. Yeah.
You understand what that feels like to have these great intentions and it sounded good in my head. And then when it came out into the world, it was nowhere near what I had in mind.
Right.
and repeat over and over, day after day after day. You understand that process. It doesn't matter what medium you're working in, you understand that process. And that's always a sort of a nice and semi-tragic thing to have in common.
Yeah, definitely. And even when said thing comes out and it kind of is just in shambles or a demo idea, for them to be like, I see what you were going for, though. It's like, thank
Yeah.
you. Like, you get it a little bit.
Yes. Well, that's
So-
right, because artists sort of have X-ray vision in that way. Like they can see through it to the intention, which is too much. It's too much to ask of the average audience goer. It's too
Right.
much to ask. You have to bring it there full front and center in full color so that they don't have to imagine very much. But for other artists, they they can see through that initial phase, and that's so valuable. When you say exactly what you just said was, I can see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
And here's a tip for non musicians or people who don't consider themselves in the art world. If anybody shows you something, I'll speak as a musician, but if somebody plays you like a new song or a new piece that they're working on, and you're thinking to yourself as they're playing it, you're thinking, oh my goodness, like what am I going to say when they're done? Like this, they're showing me the song. It's not very good. Like it's just fresh out of the hopper. What am I going to say? Am I going to compliment them? Am I going to be honest with them? I don't know what I'm going to say. Here's the tip for all your listeners out there who've been in that awkward situation. All you have to say, it's very simple. You just say, cool. Can I hear it again?
Yeah.
That's all you have to say. And yes, like you don't even have to say you like it, you don't like it. I always loved when somebody would say, great, that's so cool. Can I have another listen? That makes you feel good. It doesn't put them on the hook. And it's just one of those like get out of jail free cards that works for everybody. But often people don't know that. Hot tip. There you go.
Right.
Can I hear it again? That's all you have to say.
Support for this podcast comes from my monthly members over on my Buy Me a Coffee page. Feel free to leave me a tip just to show your support, or you can sign up for my monthly membership, which gets you annotated tabs directly to your inbox every single week. Thanks again to all my lovely friends, and your name could be here too by heading over to buymeacoffee.com/jiggywithviggy.
I'm now incorporating bits into my show. I used to not have bits, but then I realized I love a good bit, so I came up with some. So
yeah.
This one is going to be called Your Favorite Chord. I know that you love very cool chord shapes, chord inversions, chord voicings, whatever terms we like. So I wrote some chords out, just bass chords, and then you show me your favorite variation of this chord.
This will be fun.
Yeah. Now, I know that you've mentioned in other interviews that you have a very, like, geometric kind of approach to chord shapes. And you've also mentioned that sometimes chords are just, like, vibes. You don't exactly know names of chords. So, which is kind of cool. I have that, too. So, if there is a chord that you don't know what name it would fall under, you could also share that one as well.
Okay.
But we'll start nice and easy with A minor will be our first chord.
A minor.
Yeah.
I try to avoid A minor.
Good start then.
But I do love A minor add 9.
Cool.
I use that a lot. So 2-0-0-2. And when you talk about geometry, the fact that it's so symmetrical.
Yeah, that's a pretty one. I love going from this. So this is a chord I didn't know the name of. I do this one too because I love to go hammer on to that 3rd fret from the A minor.
Yes.
For this A minor /C kind of guy, if that's his name.
Right.
Kind of spooky. I like it.
Spooky, moody, I would say. Also a good challenge for all your listeners out there to try to find words to describe minor chords that are not sad.
Yeah.
Because minor chords are many things, including sad, I suppose, but that's a very thin slice of a minor chord. This one to me is very evocative, very kind of dark, mysterious, but definitely not sad.
Yeah, not sad.
Sad is kind of a cop-out, so let's do better.
Okay, our next chord is going to be E flat. I spiced it up a little.
E flat, yes. I also try to avoid E flat.
Next one will be player's choice.
No, that's why these are good choices, because it's like, what do you do when you meet an A minor or an E flat in the wild? My first instinct for E flat is E flat 6, so just straight across on the 3rd fret. If I was feeling a little bit more, fancy, I might go up to this E flat major 9, which is a lovely chord. In context, you need to hear it with the E flat in the bass. So if I sing that, if I'm gonna. It's this beautiful major 9 sound. So that one's 3-5-3-5, and it's an unusual take on it, but it's really pretty.
Yeah, I like that one. I've been doing this guy lately. So it's open 3-6-5. It's like sort of a E flat something or other. I can thank Steely Dan for this one because this came from one of my Steely Dan arrangements. So this guy was very
cool,
kind of spicy. I like it.
I like it very much. It's got that major 7 in it, so I would call it an E flat major 7.
Yeah.
But that's an unusual way to play it. I like it.
Thank you.
Cool.
I'm gonna patent that. That's mine.
Yeah, that's yours.
Yeah.
You've sequenced the genome, and it's yours.
Exactly. Cool. Okay, we'll do player's choice next. So, what's your favorite wacky chord shape of choice?
Well, one that I find myself, you always know what your wacky chord shape of choice is when you go to a music shop and you pick up a uke and you just have to play something.
Yeah.
And you're like, what am I going to do to like test out this, archtop ukulele? And whatever your fingers fall into that's probably your chord, And I find my fingers falling into this, it could be different things to different people. But it's sort of a 13 shape. So where I plonked it down just there was 5-6-6-8.
Oh wow!
And it just, no matter where you put it, it just sounds expensive, like. And if you take the pinky away, it sounds even better. I love this little descending thing. A little audio illusion there where the melody is going up, da, 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 but the chord is always moving down. It's this really weird audio illusion.
That's crazy!
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll just pick up a uke at a store and be like, oh, I know what I'm doing, right? I actually don't know the names of all those chords, but it sounds amazing, and it's just fun to hear your ear pulled in 2 different directions at once. So it's that sound that's my player's choice chord right there.
Whoa, that's cool. Yeah, that's an illusion for sure. I'm just looking at that. I'm like, I don't even know how you do that.
You're going that way, but the sound is going that way. I don't get it.
Right. Wow.
That was a good segment. Good bit.
Thank you. What song have you prepared for us today, and why are you picking it?
Prepared is an interesting word.
Chose to play right now.
What song did I choose to play right now, just right now? Well, we have been talking about that chord. I'm sure that chord is in this arrangement. I know you've played a couple of tunes from the Duets for One book.
Yes.
I've seen you post a couple of those, so way to go. Those are tricky, but fun. Mm-hmm. When I'm just sitting around on my own with, no one to impress, I tend to play quiet songs. And one of my favorites is After You've Gone, which is from that collection. Nice. Mm-hmm. So I thought I would do that one.
Yay! I'm very excited. Thank you.
Right on. Here's After You've Gone.
That was so sick. Thank you.
No, thanks.
Wow. Now,
The sound of two hands clapping. I love it.
yes.
Thank you.
Wow. That was so incredible. The way you just jump all over that fretboard is just so insane. What a treat. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome.
Well, you're welcome. The funny thing is the fretboard is just not that big.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Like it's very humbling when you walk out at night and you look up and you see the stars and you think, there are a billion stars in the galaxy and there's a billion galaxies in the universe, and you just go, oh my goodness, I can't even think about that because it makes my brain turn to mush. Mm-hmm. You can have the same feeling by like looking at the fretboard. And the fretboard is this tiny little piece of wood.
Right.
It's only this big from here to there, and it's only that wide. And you look at it and you just go, every single song that I'm ever going to play is staring me in the face right now. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but every single song that anybody has ever played is also staring me in the face right now. I just can't even think about that because my brain's going to turn to mush.
Right.
And you're like, how can it be such a tiny thing and be so vast at the same time? That's the amazing thing about the fretboard, especially on the ukulele.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a little humbling, like you said, like to know that your entire realm of possibilities is like the length of your forearm, Yeah,
like, that's right.
It's all right here. Everything that you could ever do on this is happening right here. But sometimes in our case, it also happens over here. But for the most part, it's right here. That's
right. Yes, there's a little asterisk beside that, and by the way, there's some other things, but they still are only like the length of your entire arm.
Right. And then it would be your whole arm at that point.
yeah, that's right. Still a pretty small area to like find your entire, meaning in this world.
Totally. Yeah. Now we're going to head into the silly, fun back half of this interview with 5 faves. So our first favorite is going to be your favorite film. It could be right now, I put as a disclaimer, because a lot of times it's hard for people to pinpoint one. So whatever your favorite film is at this moment.
Well, I don't watch a lot of films anymore. I do watch a lot of trailers.
Okay.
Trailers are like tiny free films, and you can watch 3 of them and still get back to work and get something done that night.
Right.
But thinking back on my film watching career, one that I think about a lot still and still use as an example in my teaching is The Usual Suspects.
Cool.
I love it. A film that was basically written backwards, but shot forwards. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of poetry in there and a lot of analogies for other things.
That's awesome. What are some of your favorite trailers you've seen lately? See anything cool that you go, that'd be cool to see, and then not see?
Well, the thing about trailers is that they're kind of a guilty pleasure. So, like I'll watch like the Barbie trailer and be like, oh, that is such a good trailer. Like that. The thing, there should be like an Academy Awards of trailers.
There absolutely should. Yes.
Because it's a different art form. And maybe it's because I'm an ukulele player, but like I love the small form. Like the short form of everything is fascinating to me. So the miniature of everything is fascinating to me. Maybe because I can relate to it because of my ukulele experience. But when I saw like the Barbie trailer is a good example, because I watched that and I laughed. I thought that the final scene of the trailer was like so hilarious. And at the same time, I had the thought, and I'm never going to go see that in the theater. So, like, you can love a trailer and still not want to go see the movie. A great example of that, there was a Jennifer Aniston movie called Wanderlust.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With Jennifer Aniston and I think Paul, is it Rudd?
Yeah, I think that's the one.
My neighbor's name is Paul Rudd, so it's very confusing for me. I always get his name mixed up. So anyway, it's a brilliant trailer, so funny. I laugh every time, and it's like a terrible movie. So that often happens, So anyway, I'm a bit of a trailer connoisseur and snob.
That's awesome. I agree, though. There should be, because a lot of times different editors, there will be editors for just trailers, and then there will be editors for full-length movies.
Absolutely.
And I remember there was a movie that came out a few years ago. It was the first Suicide Squad movie, so it was like a DC movie. But that one was edited by a production company that only does trailers. So the movie felt like a 2-hour trailer, which was kind of nauseating after a little bit.
Right, right.
You could totally tell, because the trailer, that kicked ass. That was a good one, you know?
Oh, totally. That's a perfect example. And another example that's not quite so extreme is like when TV shows try to do movies. So like when you go and watch any Star Trek movie, I mean any Star Trek movie, and some people will argue about like the Wrath of Khan, blah blah blah. But seriously, any Star Trek movie, it's just like it's an overly long TV episode, and it's like that just wasn't meant to be on the big screen for 3 hours. It just wasn't. I'm sorry, folks. Like it just never worked. So yeah, like you know, the form is fascinating. You know, like what form fits the subject. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, that's cool. I have respect for trailers. You sound like you'd be a short film guy. You should look into some short films. They're over in like 20 minutes, and then you could go on about your day. That's cool.
Yes, I definitely should look into more of them. I do sometimes watch them on the airplanes. Although they do have a tendency to be a bit like bit sort of rug pulling, sort of punchliney, like hey, and then boom, they'll hit you with a thing that you don't expect because they're short form and they're trying to make an impact.
Right.
And I'm just like, I sort of feel like they're some of the ones that I've seen have been they haven't won my trust. There's not enough time to win the trust before you have to like pull the big, you know, rug out from under the viewer. So I should give them another chance. I really should.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll give you some recommendations after.
Yes, please do.
Our second favorite's going to be, what's your favorite book?
As you're looking around the room, looking for books.
Right.
Well, that's a good question. Most of my reading, to be honest, at this point in time, is children's books and children's poetry. And I am constantly going back to the A.A. Milne stuff, which I grew up with. And so, like, you know, the entire, like, Pooh Bear treasury.
Right.
As crazy as that sounds, some of the, like, he was sort of ahead of his time in the sense that, you know how Disney makes films that are actually for the grown-ups so that they'll take the kids?
Right.
And I feel like the Milne stuff is a lot like that. Like there's so many poignant things in there that are really for the grown-ups. And so like Now We Are Six, for example, is one of my favorite books.
Yeah, a lot of those early childhood just books, like songs and stuff like that. It's one thing if, of course, it's entertaining for a child, but it's cool when it's profound enough that like you read it and you're like, damn. You're like,
and you reread it at different parts of your life, and you go, oh, that's what it means now. And there's something really just beautiful and sort of transcendent about that. You know, I'd love to write little melodies that are similar, where people can listen to them again at different parts of their life and say, oh, that's what it means to me now. You know, like the thing itself doesn't change, but your sort of angle of entry changes as you go through your life, which makes the thing feel different. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Shout out Pooh Bear for that.
It's not just Pooh Bear, but of course he's famous for Pooh. I also love, you know, When We Were Very Young. I think that's what it's called. I mean, those are just really beautiful, poignant titles, and the whole thing of the passage of time and the way we change the way our perception of time changes through our lives is really what's on display there. And I find in my own songwriting, it's a topic that I gravitate to a lot. So there's definitely been some influence there.
Next one's going to be your favorite artist or song. So it could be either or if it's the same person releasing the song, it could be that. But just what kind of music you're listening to nowadays?
Well, I listen to a lot of music.
I'm sure.
But in so many different ways. I mean, what some of it I listen to for like professional stuff. It's like, ooh, what are they doing? And what, you know, how are they doing that? And I found myself
leisure. What do you listen to when you just want to like hang out?
it's like having a hobby or something. You know, it's like, wow, remember those? Um, I'm really actually into a lot of like noisy, amorphous kind of music at the moment.
Cool.
That is not, at least at the moment, part of anything that I'm doing professionally, but music that I love, music that is extremely challenging to hear. But that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is the difference between sounds and songs.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in sort of noise music and avant-garde music and modern minimalist stuff, and whether that's like Steve Reich, which I went through a period a few months ago where I was listening to a lot of Steve Reich, and or like the Japanese noise artist Merzbow, who has always been an inspiration to me. So I keep going back to artists like that who are doing more like soundscapey stuff.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I'll sit in a jam session like I did down in DC just recently, and somebody will pull out the most heart-stoppingly beautiful John Prine song, and I'm like, oh well, obviously that's my favorite thing ever. So I find myself bouncing around a lot with music between extremes, really. So from John Prine to Merzbow.
That's cool. Do you think you'll incorporate any of those kind of more soundscapey, noisy type of things with the uke down the line?
I have, and I've been secretly recording these things for years. I just don't know how to sort of come out of the closet with it.
Right.
Because this is something I'm really struggling with at the moment, to be honest, is that, people know me for certain things, but I have a lot more interests than that, a lot more diverse interests than that, musically especially. And I'm creating things that are much more off the track. And even the UkeHeads album is like pretty hard rockin'. When you hear it, I'll be curious to hear what you think. But like there are some moments that are just full on psychedelic rock.
Oh, no way.
And there's no guitars. It's all ukulele, a lot of baritone ukulele, and these 300 people from around the world just sort of went with me on this crazy journey. But that is a part of me that is real and that I need to express.
Right.
And so the question becomes more one of like, I guess, marketing. Like, do you put all that under one banner and say, hey, if you like me, then this is all of me. And here are all the corners of me that you may not actually like, but you may like getting to know me better. So, you know what I mean? Like, do people want that? Or do they want you to just sort of do the thing that you do? And if you want to do something different than that, just, I don't know, make up a different name or have a different handle or have a pseudonym or a pen name or whatever. But we really just want you to do that thing that we want you to do. So could you just be good and stay in your lane? I really can't actually make up my mind at this moment what the right move is. Do I release some of these things under a pseudonym or do I let people know this is who I really am? And and now you at least know. And you're not going to like everything, but that's true of any relationship. You're not going to like everything that somebody does, period. So what's your opinion? What do you think I should do?
Okay.
Pen name or go whole hog and be completely transparent?
So I think as James Hill, the ukulele icon, legend, man, the myth, the legend, James Hill, I think that anything that you do is so sick. And even if it's something that deviates from the norm that you've been doing, that people associate you for doing, I think if you put it out and you have that passion, the same passion that you apply to everything else that you do for something that's new and that people haven't heard of, that's no different than you doing the chopstick stuff like 15 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's this new side of you that you're presenting on an instrument that those limits, people weren't sure that something could be achieved with something of this small size. So I think it's sick if you go for it as James Hill. You stand by it. You're like, this is my new thing I'm working on. I really like this stuff. I hope you like it. And then if it's not for them, if it's not their cup of tea, then you still have your whole back catalog of something. As long as you put it out and you're authentic with it and it's something that you like, I think you could put it out as yourself. Or you can go have a lot of fun with it, pull like a Trillington like Paul McCartney did and put out a pseudonym, a whole other kind of vibe, and keep it separate. And in that way, you could almost attract more of a crowd that's into that type of stuff, and they can discover your other type of like home base type of things, like the original kind of stuff you've been doing. So I definitely think both routes are two different ways you could go, but I don't think you of all people should not be concerned about putting something out and worrying what people think about it. I think you can always just go for it.
Well, thank you. For what it's worth, I am sort of leaning toward that. Putting it out under one banner and saying, look, you might not like this part of me, but it is a part of me, and if you want to know me, then I would rather be honest with you than not. Yeah. and also because, like, God willing, I've still got like 20 good years of touring and recording ahead of me, and there's a whole generation of listeners who are coming up who have big ears and have grown up in a playlist generation where it's not so much what the artist's sort of catalog is. It's more about like, do I like this one thing right now?
Totally. Yeah.
And that's different than sort of growing up with, say, like long playing album culture, which I also love. But I think a younger generation is like yourself, is saying, hey, that's cool. Like, let's hear it.
Yeah.
And I am sort of leaning toward that, but it's a leap for me to be that open with people, knowing that just knowing that by the numbers there will be people who find it really abrasive and not pleasant.
Right.
Because I've spent a lot of my life doing things that I thought people would like, and partly doing them because I thought people would like them. But that's I guess part of the freedom of being in your 40s. You start to care a little bit less about that thing, and you start to see that hey, I don't have all the time in the world, so let me say my truth while I can.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mentioned Steely Dan earlier because I have a similar situation with the TikTok crowd, or my TikTok followers and things. Are any of them listening to Steely Dan? No. But am I going to go and post a fingerstyle arrangement that I've done of my favorite Steely Dan deep cut that only I know? Yeah.
Of course.
That's what I like to do. That's what I'm listening to. That's the kind of music that I'm loving all the time, and what I feel like I can express really nice on the uke. And if they're not digging the Steely Dan, then I got my back catalog of 4-chord strummers that you could check out. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But yeah, finding that balance of when it comes to your audience of like putting something out that's true to you versus putting something out that you know that they'll like is kind of an interesting like balance to kind of find. I'm by no means saying I figured it out at all. But it's good to play around with both of those. So if you feel like you've been putting out the more comfortable things for a long time or something like that, and you're ready to kind of jump in and hit them with the curveball of your noisy ukulele stuff, I think you should go for it.
Well, thank you. And UkeHeads is a little bit of a step toward just loosening the tight-fitting clothes a little bit and saying like, I'm just gonna, these are the songs the way they came out, and they are so massive sounding, and some of the cuts on there are just like pretty epic. And we just did a gig the other day at a church, part of a folk festival concert series, and a friend of ours brought their 90-year-old grandmother, and she said very plainly, she said, I just didn't like it. And we played some Champagne Weather stuff, and we played some of our songs, and we did some, we're going out on a limb a little bit, and she was just like, I didn't like it. And I'm like, well, good. Right.
Good. Okay, good. Yeah.
And that is okay, so, sitting with that and being comfortable with that is sort of a challenge for me, but it's a good challenge. It's the next step.
Yeah, definitely. Means you're evolving even more so on your journey to put stuff out. So
I think so.
Figure it out. You got it.
Thank you.
You can do it.
Thank you.
Cool. What's your favorite food?
Ooh, now this. Now I have too many favorites. My wife Anne is an amazing cook, so we have a lot of good food around here. But it's very hard to pick one. I would say sushi is right up there.
Cool.
I will just say, I'll just put a plug in for the general concept of preservation. So, and more philosophically, the good things that we've inherited from preserving things. I mean, whether it's like canning, pickling, smoking, salting, fermenting, like all of these things, or sushi itself is originally a way of preserving, food. So many of these things have come from the desire to preserve what we have for some other time, like the spring or the winter, more like it, or, like 10 years from now, with wine or whiskey or anything like this. So, and it's interesting to me as a songwriter, let's see if I can make this little link here. As a songwriter, rhyme and alliteration and all the things that we use, all the devices that we use for songwriting, were also ways of more easily committing things to memory. And so rhyme is actually a preservation technique, right? So if I had to remember my family history or whatever, I would make sure it rhymed, because that was the only way I was going to remember it if it was passed on in an oral tradition. And so all of the good things that have come to us through just this desire to basically save the data and pass it on, now we don't need that anymore. Like, we have our sort of phones, and we have our, hard drives and everything that's preserving everything all the time, and the refrigerator that preserves everything. Right. And yet we still use rhyme. We don't really think about why we're using rhyme, but like the reason it was there, it was because it was the only way to remember the way to get home. Like, it was so important, it was so critical that rhyme would store the data that was important. And now we just use it sort of purely aesthetically, and we don't really need it anymore. But it is like sushi. Bringing it back around. Sort of like the thing that we have inherited from the need to preserve things. So I am very inspired by food.
Nice. Very well said. I like where that went and where we came.
Wow, that was just like, tangent.
Nice. I like it though. That was cool. I'm a big pickle guy, so I like.
Oh, there you go.
Preserving things.
How did I leave out pickling? Yeah. There you go.
Cool.
And then the fridge happened, and people were like, "Oh, that's it. We're not going to innovate anymore. We're going to put everything on ice. The only thing the fridge gave us was freezer jam. That's it. Just put it in the fridge. That's it. That's all we can do now. Just plug it into the wall.
Just plug it in, put it in the fridge." Alrighty, and then our final favorite here is going to be, what's your favorite hobby?
Am I allowed to say music?
Yeah. Sorry.
That would be like the biggest anticlimax. Music is just a little too obvious. So if it wasn't music, I would say probably my favorite is something that you and I have in common, which is chickens.
Nice! I heard your chicken in the background, actually.
Did you hear? I was like, oh, don't stop ruining this take. That was Rosie Jr., the rooster.
Oh, very cute. I love chickens. I had, right now I just have the one that makes an appearance in my videos, but we did have
just one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you're aware of various ways that chickens can fly the coop spiritually.
Yes. Right.
But, so right now I have the one chicken. Her name is Hawkie.
Hawkie.
Which
nice.
She lives up to her namesake because she did fight off a hawk at one point.
Cool.
So it's very cool. But, yeah, that's cool. How many chickens do you have?
We were down to 4 after various incidents, and then we just hatched a bunch of chicks, some in an incubator and some under a broody hen, and we now have 15 little chicks that are running around. Wow. 2 of the hens are co-mothering. It's really sweet. Have you ever seen this where the hen that actually laid the eggs and sat on them is like, she's the like official mom, but then there's the sort of surrogate mom who comes in and she really wants to be involved. And so, and she's also, as it turns out, just bigger and like she can take more under her wing. And so it's very nice to have this surrogate mama around.
Right.
But the surrogate mama will like sit on some chicks for a little while, and then like the real mama who's walking around will just be like, wait a minute, those are my chicks.
Right.
And so she'll come over and she'll nose in under the surrogate mama, and nose in until finally she's fully under the surrogate mama, and she plonks herself down on the chicks, and the surrogate mama sits on top of the other hen. So we've got like a stack of chickens, and the chicks underneath are like, what is going on up there? Yeah. They can't even figure it out. Like, can you please figure out? Like, so anyway, it's just like piles of chickens.
I've never heard of that, but that's incredible.
Really?
Yeah.
I wondered if that was a thing, because I've only seen it, this month as they've hatched, and it just was like hilarious. It was one of those things, like if I caught it on video, I could send it into like America's Funniest Home Videos if they still existed.
Right. I think they're still around, but
are they still around? Yeah. Anyway, entertainment.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll roll out the carpet to you, James. Let us know what you got going on, where you can find you. I'm sure everyone knows, but where can we find you on the internet and live if you're on tour, kind of, right now?
Coming up soon.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, the main place to find me is UkeTropolis.com and UkeTropolis on Instagram, and my own personal music is at jameshillmusic.com. We're going on tour fairly soon. We've got a Christmas record that we've been waiting to release for a couple of years, sort of like winter songs and reimagined carols from days gone by. Cool. And so I've also got the UkeHeads album coming out, so UkeHeads.com, and it's going to be a really busy year of music. And so we've just launched a new thing called Ukuleles, which is a free orchestra for anybody to join. So check out ukuleles.com if you want to be part of one of these big worldwide ukulele bands. So lots going on. This is going to be a big year of music.
Amazing. And I can't wait to hear all of it. I thank you so much, James, for coming on. Appreciate your time. And
thank you.
I'll talk to you soon, because now we're best friends. Because everyone who comes up the show is best friends. So now we're best friends. So that's how.
Plus chickens, so that seals the deal.
Yeah, we got.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate you having me on, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. Hope you have a great weekend, and
thanks.
I'll see you on Instagram.
All right, I'll see you around.
Cool.
Bye for now.
Bye.